This replay has so many things that I love, but historical data shows that, unfortunately, Greenskins and Beastmen are two of the lesser viewed factions on this particular channel. That's okay, though. I'm going to cast this battle because I think it's awesome. We've got two regular submitters of replays here, Cool Umbrella and Lenorm, facing off Greenskins versus Beastmen. Got a Goblin Great Shaman up on the Spider. Great pick against Beastmen in general for the terror and the armor piercing, poison. A lot of people also forget, but the fact that the Ragnarok Spider has AoE poison, essentially, with the Howder on the back, with these little goblins, their little bows and such. Pretty good stuff. We've got some Savage Orc Biggins to back them up. Looks like some Savage Orc Air Boys as well. 4 or 5 goblins up front, some trolls here, regiment renowned swamp things. We've got spider riders, wolf rider archers out on the flanks, and some squig herds. 2 goblin big bosses, very key here. They look like they're on wolves based on their stats. They've got 90 speed, no poison, great weapon strength. I guess you don't really need the poison if they're going to be paired with the Great Shaman in order to protect him. On the opposite side, got Malagor here in the air, 2 Manticores, Eye of Morslib, Ventigores, and Chaos Warhounds as well, Blackhorns Ravagers, Ungor Raiders, and the Destroyers of Drakwold, along with some regular Ungor Spearmen up front, ready to clash with some goblins. Summer heat and haze. Must be Australia, or, you know, somewhere in the southern hemisphere at the very least, this time of year. Definitely feeling it. I got about 6 inches of snow today, if anyone cares. Not that you do, but anyway, in the front line here, Goblin Great Shaman going to be diving straight in. Some nice debuffs, Itchy Nuisance as well. A lot of people discount, but nice melee attack debuff AoE. Response here, we've got Flock of Doom just dealing straight damage. The Manticores also drop double on those Swamp Things just for high DPS. You can see here, Cool Umbrella doing a great job keeping his Goblin Great Shaman in reserve. They're hopefully going to sweep in here with the Spider Riders and try and pin the Manticores in. Yeah, Wa being popped now at this point. We've also got Doom and Darkness not quite able to break the leadership of the Swamp Things. Remember, a lot of troll units got leadership buffs in the 2.3 update, I believe it was. I forget, honestly. But, yeah, trolls, especially with the Swamp Things, the fact that they're immune to psychology due to their own terror, with that additional leadership, they actually can do quite well in terms of holding out. They're able to hold the line and push back against those poison warhounds, Centaurs and whatnot. Wolf Riders now maneuvering away. The Cygor in the back has been just raining shots so far. 55 kills, 500 value. Decent. Crazy, but certainly little Savage Orc Biggins feeling the pain there as another giant chunk of amber lands right in the center of the unit. Spider brutally nomming on some poor gores here. Yeah, both players scrapping, though, honestly. The Manticores are able to kind of pull away here and combine with the Centaurs, utilize their mobility to try and get some tear routes in various pockets. Unfortunately, though, this Manticore does get beat up. The little gobbo that could. I love Goblin Big Bosses. I think they're one of the cheapest melee heroes in the game. They're also super underrated. They're one of those units that if you find yourself with empty hero slots for whatever reason as the Greenskins, they are a super cheap add and can have great utility hunting down, you know, kind of low-tier monsters like the, say low-tier not in terms of its effectiveness, but rather its cost, I should say. Manticore. Casters also, they're great for hunting horse-mounted casters with that high speed and the character debuff and whatnot. A little bit more Itchy Nuisance. Don't even try it. Now being popped on Malagor as he dives down to the ground. There is still this Eye of Morslib to deal with, though. No, Squig Herd's out of control. Facing some routing units. We do have Ungors with mobility being supported, but characters here both maneuvering, trying to get at Malagor, perhaps. Yeah, all 3 of these Goblin. They got some schemes here for the Goat Boy up in the sky, but thankfully for the Beastmen, Malagor is able to get away. Continue on fighting. Try and use his mobility to try and clean up. There's a lot of routed goblins all across the field. Beastmen certainly do have their own leadership issues, but 3v1 here, it's going to be terrible for the Eye of Morslib. The Goblin Big Bosses you might not think would trade well, just sheerly due to the cost, but certainly with the Squig Herds as support, and with the Spider, it's more than enough to go 3v1 against the giant one-eyed monstrosity. Nice screen here. Centaur is going to be somewhat sacrificed. They're not going to do a ton of damage to any of the units here. They really just can't get effective hits on the goblins. You can see that they're so small, especially paired up with the squigs and the spider here. They're only fighting one or two of the centaurs at a time, which is pretty ideal. It's one of the strengths of this unit is that small size. Those gobbo bosses really can contribute when saturated in with support like that. They're definitely not one-man armies by any means. They're quite the opposite, but with support can be quite effective. Beastmen are not giving up, though. This is a great Beastmen play, I have to say, in terms of continuously scrapping, hit and run. The goblins, I will say, Cool Umbrella able to kind of dictate the pace a little bit with this Doom Blob here with the Goblin Great Shaman and the big bosses. Very strong presence. It's kind of bullying the Beastmen around a little bit more than they would like, certainly. But the Manticores and Malagor are still staying mobile. They've got these Destroyers of Drakwald and Centaurs out in space as well. Ungor Spearman Herd managed to clean up the Swamp Things, who, besides having that heroic defense, really didn't do much, to be honest, at the end of the day. But it's all good. Gore Herds also, the speed of Beastmen infantry showing that 33 speed. Sorry, that's the goblins. Gore Herds, yeah, 42 speed. More than enough to chase down. But anyway, getting back to the important character fight here. Goblin Great Shaman getting some self-buffs. Malagor with the Manticore drops down to try and even these numbers out a little bit. And it looks like one of the Goblin big bosses is out of position here. Not in the right place to support this critical character fight. But we'll see. Thankfully, the Crown of Command can be self-casted on the Goblin Great Shaman. He just, I imagine in my head, he slaps on himself and just, points in the shine. And anyway, yeah, Goblin Big Boss here also fighting the Manticore. And the Eye of Morsley being heavily debuffed, only 30 melee attack there. Weapon strength is down. Just not fighting at full capacity, and that does mean that Goblins are able to survive. The Goblin Big Boss actually would have won out against the Manticore. Unfortunately for him, Terror does kick in, but at the same time, Savage Orc begins surging. We've got the Spider Riders recovering out in the distance, and more here in the near frame. Able to come in and support, but not looking great. Ooh, that Goblin Great Shaman routes, that is very rough. Not the best leadership on them in general, even on the Spider. That Crown of Command certainly helps in a key situation, but once it wears off, is vulnerable to getting just straight leadership routed, and that's what transpires here. So looking very rough for the Greenskins. Will it snowball into a full-on army rout? That's the question here. These Savage Orc Biggins managing to maybe hold their leadership together. They're kind of a linchpin. If they're able to hold, and a lot of these other units can recover from that initial shockwave, the Goblin Great Shaman can perhaps get away from Malagor. Oh yeah, Goblin Big Boss comes back. This is perhaps very key. He can now come in and pressure Malagor. Spider Riders as well can stay in pursuit and make sure that the Goblin Great Shaman comes back. Now this other Goblin Big Boss coming back. Okay, so the Savage Orcs were able to hold kind of out of frame during that time, but managed to hold their leadership together, just bopping on some Ungor Spearman Herd. Get some Goblins now supporting there. So an absolute scrap, and a game that definitely deserved to be casted. I knew right away as soon as I saw it. Just, based on the compositions and the outcome, it's been crazy back and forth. That Cygor does get back online as well. Starts pulling up and eating some rocks. That will create another kind of dynamic to this fight, as Crown of Command immediately popped on the Goblin Great Shaman just to make sure he can stand in this fight. A risky dive from the Beastmen, as now with the Great Shaman back, the Goblin Big Boss moving into range, it could be potentially very bad. Oh yeah, the Goblin Great Shaman's got more than enough speed to keep up with Malagor on the ground, especially with poison and everything else. Now the Manticore potentially taking some hits. Gork will fix it, decisively locking down the speed. Malagor actually gets terror routed here. So just like that, the sneaky scheme comes through. Goblins are able to turn things around on the nasty beasts and get them off the field. Decisive defeat for Malagor there against the Goblins. Oh, he gets straight killed. That's going to be a disaster in terms of Beastmen leadership. The Manticore immediately shatters, and all across the field, we're going to see Beastmen units starting to rout. Yep, those Ungor Spearman Herd get routed there. Savage Orc Biggins and Goblins are moving in. The Cygor is certainly still a threat, has the power to perhaps to take a wild swing back in the other direction, but we'll see. Gork will fix it. Itchy Nuisance, rather, now being popped here, making sure those Ungol Raiders can't fight back effectively. They do have some decent attack stats without that, but yeah, obviously going to get terror routed there. And now this character, Doomblob, can try and close in and 3v1 on the Eye of Morslib. They should be able to get it done, but we'll see. Certainly Goblin leadership has been a letdown in the past for me and many others, so let's fast forward a little bit as the one Goblin Big Boss, make sure they chase some routing units there. Interesting for the Goblin Great Shaman, it looks like was snared by the ability, the Eye of Morslib there, that, yeah, that Warp Gaze, momentarily keeping it out of the fight. Thankfully, the Goblin Big Boss didn't get too beat up. Looks like it did get terror routed away. I apologize if you hear my phone going off in the background there. But now for the Duel of the Fates. Final battle between the two bosses of these armies. To a degree. I mean, not that the Cygor is strictly the boss, but it is going to lose out. Not fair fight from the beginning, as the Goblin Great Shaman is an actual caster. Although, aren't Cygors supposed to be able to see casters, like actually see them for real? I don't know. Lore heads will have to let me know. But it'd be interesting maybe if the Cygor got like a specific attack bonus versus casters or something. That'd be cool. But at this point, with the Cygor gone, it's more than enough to finish off the Beastmen army, and that will be game. So, an absolutely crazy battle. Big thanks to Cool Umbrella for sending that one in, and a GG to him and Lenorm here, both scrapping to the absolute limit. Didn't even realize that the Spider Riders are rank 9. Definitely makes a big difference. It's quite a quality unit to rank 9 as well, given their stats and how well they kind of chevron and everything. Goblin Big Boss on the Wolf, crazy cost effective. I'll have to look at the final cost on that in just a second here, but the Goblin Great Shaman also definitely one of the better lore choices for the Greenskins right now in many matchups when you can be safe from too many oppressive missiles or when you have the ability to respond here. Squig Herd's also very cost effective. Goblins to back them up. Just love this composition in general. Both sides, too. I mean, this is a very sensible Beastman composition, how I would go about things right now. Manticores, one of them ends up getting pretty well canned at the beginning there. But one does definitely get its value back. So, Cygor is very effective. Beastman infantry, perhaps, yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of them kind of way outperform. Very interesting to see. I guess a lot of that coming against, like, trolls, especially... Yeah, the Swamp Things, unfortunately, did not do much. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Beastman stuff ends up paying for itself. It's just kind of, you know, some key engagements in the periphery were lost. And ultimately, Malagor is pretty good. But in terms of spell composition there, I'd have to look back and really see. That might have been where it was lost, honestly. Perhaps in this situation, honestly, a Cygor summon just for the additional terror used in melee. Or perhaps to get a key engagement if you're able to... get the Cygor summon and maybe Warp Gaze Spider in like a late game situation and get multiple single entities that way, or at least get one extra single entity in a key fight. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this, though. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.